What we have been trying to do, starting in October, then in December, and now, is to try and get people back to work. The things we're trying to pass in this bill are the time-tested, proven, bipartisan solutions to get businesses to stop laying off people, to hire people back, and to help those people who've lost their jobs. It's more than just giving someone an unemployment check. It's also helping those people with their health insurance while they've lost their jobs. And more important than just that unemployment check is to do what we can to give people a paycheck. We've got to get the engine of economic growth growing again, because we now know, because of a recession, we don't have the revenues we wanted to. We don't have the revenues we need to fix Medicare, to fix Social Security, to fix these issues. We've got to get Americans back to work. Then the surpluses come back. Then the jobs come back. That is the constructive answer we're trying to accomplish here on, yes, a bipartisan basis. I urge members to drop the demagoguery and to pass this bill to help us work together to get the American people back to work and help those people who've lost their jobs.
Who is that guy?
Who is that guy?
It gets better.
That was,
where do I get to wear a pin?
Yeah, you're ready to
Where am I
And that was not, it was not just a line that Ryan gave in Washington. According to the Wisconsin newspaper, the Journal Times, he goes back to his district, and at a town hall meeting with constituents back in his district, he's making the case for Keynesian stimulus spending in much simpler terms. This is what he says. Quote, "You have to spend a little to grow a little. What we're trying to do is stimulate the part of the economy that's on its back." Paul Ryan, 2012, you have to spend a little to grow a little. No, Paul Ryan, 2002, you have to spend a little to grow a little. Paul Ryan, 2012, we hate and reject the failed experiment of Keynesian. It shows Paul Ryan defending what was then a George W. Bush stimulus to get out of it, and using every single argument of the basic deficit spending argument about stimulus. And I'm just curious, Michael Grunwald, you've written this book that is the most, I think, thorough investigation of the Recovery Act and politics of it and what it did. What is your response when you hear that?
Paul Ryan supported the 2002 Bush stimulus. He supported the 2008 Bush stimulus. Right. This was not a controversial topic. In 2008, every presidential candidate, Republican and Democrat, had a stimulus plan. The largest was actually by some guy that you might have heard of. He was the governor of Massachusetts. Right. The name's escaping me. That's right. Yeah, it was $250 billion, Mitt Romney's stimulus plan.
And he had the largest stimulus plan.
The largest of all of them. And, Republicans, the $787 billion Obama stimulus, which had tax cuts and spending, was, of course, tyrannical socialism. But there was a Republican substitute that was $715 billion of spending and tax cuts that was apparently good public policy. Right. Paul Ryan voted for that one, too. So this is...
Wait, Paul Ryan voted for a $750 billion Republican stimulus?
He most certainly did.
It goes to show that Romney and Ryan are match made in heaven. They both walk around with Etch-a-Sketch. Right? And it's like and we're not seeing these clips on Fox News, right? I mean, it's great that this hypocrisy has got to be exposed.
People forget that in the fourth quarter of 2008, GDP fell at a 9% annual rate. That's a depression. That's at that rate, we would have lost an entire Canadian economy in 2009. In January 2009, we lost 800,000 jobs. Then we passed a stimulus. The next quarter had the biggest improvement in jobs in 30 years. But it was still terrible. Right. And that crushed the politics, because essentially you've got a jobs bill while you're hemorrhaging jobs. Like you said, you had an 8 million job hole, and this was a 3 million job solution. There was no stimulus.
But in the book, you're pretty tough on liberals on this, right? I mean, I think that you make the case that liberals didn't defend that they should have stood with the law and defended the policy and defended the legislation.
That $800 billion is a lot of money. A lot of that was tax cuts, so that is what it is, the making work pay tax cut, which was quite beneficial for people and didn't give the Obama administration a lot of credit, because they chose to immediately start implementing it in people's paychecks. So the majority of Americans didn't even realize they were going to get taxes cut. Right. But what is in there that people should know about that they don't, that has had some kind of concrete, lasting impact on the country?
Sure. Well, because a lot of it was this sort of standard Keynesian stimulus that Paul Ryan loves so much, right? The largest middle class tax cut since Reagan. food stamps and unemployment benefits and other aid to victims of the Great Recession, and very important aid to states so that they don't have to lay off, hundreds and thousands of cops and teachers.
And as soon as that was done, we have seen layoffs in states.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And of course, it would have been worse, which makes a lousy bumper sticker, but it's true. But what's really interesting and nobody realizes about the Recovery Act is that it was called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and there was this long-term reinvestment. This was the sort of Trojan horse for what Obama meant by change. And he had talked during the campaign about energy, education, healthcare, and sort of restructuring the economy. And this is where you have $90 billion for clean energy when we had been spending just a few $billion a year. Wind, solar, geothermal, other. Has
that had an effect? Because I'm like you, climate change is. I'm really focused on it, and I am frustrated with the Obama administration on that. What has that had an effect in actually where we get our energy from?
We've doubled our renewables in this country when in 2008 we were dead in the water. We've started to build a smart grid. We've got a domestic battery industry for electric vehicles. We've had $25 billion worth of investments in energy efficiency, which will not only create jobs for the guys with caulk guns, but it reduces our emissions. It reduces our dependence on the foreign petro thugs. It reduces what taxpayers have to pay on our energy bills. It's sort of good all around. You've had just unprecedented investments in, advanced biofuels. You've got the world's largest wind farm, a half dozen of the world's largest solar farms. It really is starting to.
And that is from Recovery Act money.
This is all from the Recovery Act, and it really is starting to sort of begin our transition to a low carbon economy. Of course, anybody here is Solyndra, which was 1% of the
entire portfolio.
The loan portfolio.